Today I'm talking to Levi Meyer of Compass Miami in Coconut Grove. Levi is known for closing deals everyone else says can't be done. To bring this home for you, if you remember the movie War Dogs, that's right, the one about the 20-somethings that won a $300 million arms deal, Levi was their general manager. Today we talk about that experience, what he learned, and the problem-solving skills that will close any deal. Welcome to the Jerry Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. I created this podcast because over the years that I've been an agent, from struggling to successful, I've found that the one thing, the one foundation that created the mindset, knowledge, and ability to break through to new levels was the camaraderie and sharing of ideas from other generous and successful agents. Those experiences catapulted my career. They gave me the inspiration and idea to further develop those friendships and share what they have had to share with me to make not only more successful careers for each of us, but a stronger community and better respect for our profession at large. All right, everybody, it's the Jerry Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today we have Levi Meyer in Compass Miami, with Compass Miami, and focused in the Coconut Grove community. Levi, by the way, I just have to put it in, y'all. I'm sure I said it in the intro before this intro, but he was formerly an arms dealer, but we're going to get around to that. Not yet. We're going to talk about a little bit about his career first, but that makes it all interesting, even more interesting. But Levi, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be on the show. I'm a big fan. I've been watching, and I'm honored to be among all the fantastic agents and leaders like Leonard and John Zimmerman, and you had Chris Voss on the show. So it's great to be here.
Yes.
As Ivan Kwan said in our last podcast, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Ivan is clever. So I've been on his show and he's been on my show. So awesome to have you. So tell us, first of all, let's just talk about what got you into the real estate business in the first place.
So, I actually have a long family history in real estate. My grandfather was a real estate appraiser, and my uncle took over the business after him, and there were 30 years in it. He used to sneak me out of school when I was a kid to take me on appraisals down in Homestead and get me smoothies.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
But it's actually not how I really got into real estate. Getting into real estate actually goes back to when I was an arms dealer, and as I got out of arms dealing, it was a long story, which we'll get into if you'd like. But
we will.
But my attorney in the end of the arms things had said, why don't you go give real estate a try? It's a better, more wholesome business. I said, you know what, you're probably right. And that was in 2008, though.
And then you tried real estate.
Everybody was running from real estate. The market was
in 2008, exactly.
Yeah. And so that's when I had looked at real estate. I kind of looked the other direction. I went and did some other stuff for a few years, and then what happened was I was running a moving company, like the sales and customer service for one. And I did a move one day. I went to this house to do an estimate for them, and I'm looking at this house, and the move was an enormously expensive move. It was almost $30,000 to just move them across country, and I said, $30,000 is a lot of money. Like, how much is this house worth? How much is this furniture worth?
Yeah.
And the agent who was there, he tells me it's more or less $5 million. And I said, how much are you making on that? Because I was very excited. I was going to make like $4,000 or $5,000 on that move. And then he tells me how much he's making selling that house. And I said, I am on the wrong side of this transaction.
Wow. Interesting. So that happened. And then from then to having your license and signing up with a real estate office, how long did that take, and what unfolded, and how did your first deal happen?
So the barrier to entry in Miami is not particularly that high, as I'm sure it's not.
It's not really anywhere,
most cities,
right?
In most neighborhoods in most cities in the country, but I got in really starting from scratch. I didn't have very much of a network. I started very, very grassroots. I picked a farm area, and I would send these cheap letters, and it cost me like a stamp in a postcard, a stamp in an
Well, you
envelope.
were clearly not listening to the Jerry Metcalf podcast, but at least it worked.
I was sending letters, very, very grassroots.
That's actually awesome. Yeah.
But I focused on a neighborhood in Coral Gables, the Gables Waterway that lets in from the Biscayne Bay to the Biltmore Hotel, and it runs through the golf course. And all those little houses along that canal, were at the time $1.5 million plus. Now you're lucky to get on under two plus million, and many of them are 3, 4, and 7 million.
Yeah.
And I would kayak the waterway with a buddy of mine who lived there. And I would take my iPhone and take photos and make notes of the houses that looked like they were falling apart.
That's
and
brilliant.
then we'd door knock on them, send them letters until we cracked one, finally got a good sale. And in the meantime, I was doing a lot of rentals that I would do on. At the time, we were able to post them on Craigslist without permission. We would just take them and re-syndicate them. And I would hire guys in like India and Pakistan online to just post all the rentals in Miami on Craigslist for me, and I just wait for the phone to ring, and I'd run
Serial
around.
Entrepreneur. That's what you are.
Yeah.
Which that's what real estate agents usually are in some form or fashion, or we're at least entrepreneurs. So you were in several other industries. You decided to get your real estate license, and I love your approach because you just went directly to you went directly for the deal. A lot of people try to go after the people and get hired. You went after the deal. You went after, okay, there are properties that need to be rented. Let's get myself in front of getting them rented and get the information out so they can be rented, and you did deals that way. Let's go learn the market. So you go down, you're kayaking and studying all of the houses. You're learning the market. You're learning the situation. You're figuring out who might sell where. And then you get yourself into kind of a high-end, over $1 million market. I mean, that's high-end in Atlanta. And then, and it's probably a pretty decent house in Miami too. But what I love about that is that you're going after the deal by finding information, and you're going after the deal because I think a lot of people forget when the book, I quote this book a lot, but it is, now I'm drawing a blank, David and Goliath, where, the Goliath everybody thinks is the big scary monster that can't be overcome, and David is just like this little guy, and he happens to have God on his side, and not that he didn't, but he kills Goliath. But everybody forgets that Goliath looks big and scary, but Goliath can't see very well because in that day, people of that size, I can't remember that. Do you remember the name of the disease, Isaac? But anyway, there were all of these limitations he had despite how he was perceived. So as a newer agent, you had time, you were young, you were kayaking, you had buddies, you had resources. A lot of kids, younger, newer agents now have technology. We have, listen to Gary Vaynerchuk. He'll tell you all day long about all the advantages we have with that. And you tap into the market and you go in that way. But you were kind of like the David, and a lot of, I've been doing real estate for a long time, but I look back and I remember I did a lot of what you did, and people were like, how does she do it? Like, how does she just come in here? She's not even from Atlanta. She's getting all of her listings. Because I was the David. And they were Goliath. Other agents, the agents get big. They only have so much time. They only have so many resources, or they're having a hard time utilizing all the resources to focus them the way you can just focus in and hone in and get some big deals. And your overhead's not high, so you're making a lot of money.
No, but we get scrappy. You got to get scrappy when you don't have much to work with. You got to roll.
And I went on a long tangent. Sorry, guys, but I really wanted to drive that home for everybody. And I will interview Levi, not myself. Maybe.
No, you're good. You're good. I love to hear it.
So, but I just wanted to really drive that home for everybody about what you did. So you did that, and I think you've come into this business and really come in and done a lot of deals that other people have said were impossible. Whereas a $7 million lot that you've recently sold, or a $100,000 deal that you recently sold that you called 15 lenders and got, actually, I think, rejections 3 times, and the fourth one worked.
But we interviewed about 15 agents, 15 different lenders to try to get this deal done. And I would just get no, can't do it. The building has a pending lawsuit. There's too many. The tenant to owner ratio is too high. The investor lives out of the country, and she's not really, just no's. And I'm like, there's just no way that this is not a deal that can be underwritten. And we just called the right ones until we found somebody that said they'll get it done. There's a solution, I think, at the end of that problem. It's and for me, that was $190,000 condo in South Beach, which, by the way, you can buy a condo in South Beach facing the Biscayne Bay with a downtown skyline, like watching that Miami Vice sunset for $190,000. It's not a lot of money, but it made this client really, really happy. It made the agent at Compass New York who referred it to me very happy. And to me, it's more about getting the win and getting that problem solved than about the size of the deal. But of course, we all like.
Well, exactly.
I wish it was 19 million, but
Well, but it's exactly deals. So we had a recent interview. Was that last week or what was recent? But when we release this, it will be a month or two ago. But we had Steve Hall, but the Steve Hall interview. So Steve Hall interviewed. He did a $3,000 lease that turned into a $5 million referral that turned into a $14 million deal that turned into a $30 million deal because he did a $3,000 lease, which is a lot smaller, maybe not as difficult, but they are usually a little more difficult. Maybe not as difficult as your $100,000 deal, but I think that really brings that home.
There's something actually to that, because I watched that Steve Hall interview, and it reminded me that the reality is that there are no set rules in this game. There's guidelines, but everybody does a little differently, because people will tell you time and time again, focus on what you're good at. Don't waste your time on small stuff. Don't do the rentals. Just pass them off to someone else. But then you hear stories like Steve's where he went and did a $3,000 rental. It wasn't something. It's something that many other people would have said, hey, don't waste your time with that. Your time is better spent on $3 million deals. Go after the big ones. But he did do it. And then that turned into a $5 million deal, which turned into a $14 million deal. So,
and then there was a $30 million.
Do you not do the rentals, or do you go and do them so that they can turn to something bigger? And there really isn't a rule book. I think you just have to go about it and figure it out for yourself and say, how can I leverage each interaction or each deal into something bigger?
Well said, exactly. And I think you just got to look at each deal. Like some deals I do just to learn. Like obviously I like to get paid too, and I usually do, but it's also like I'm going to learn from this, and doing deals to learn, and also doing deals, there's learning, and then there's strategy, and then there's helping out clients. And as you get more experience, you pick and choose, but then you take deals like that as you get to be a more experienced agent, and you give them to someone that you're mentoring or someone on your team to stay connected to the deal, but also help pay it forward and give them experience. But yeah, exactly. You said it probably better than I did.
But I think, you have to learn something from everything that you do, whether it's a $3,000 rental or otherwise. And, I try to get as creative as possible when a situation is very difficult. We have a listing now that's difficult to sell. I just brought the seller an offer that is it's a trade deal. He says, hey, give this guy your house and he'll give you a much more valuable piece of land plus $3 million. So we'll give you the house plus $3 million for this land over here, and
you just got to figure out how to put it on. Oh yeah, and what? So and actually, when I've been doing it. I don't like to admit. I think it's 16 years. I want to say 15, but I do think it's 16. Like I think it's officially like 16.
In Miami, we'd call that your quinceañera year.
You can say what?
Your quinceañera year.
That's even worse. So anyway, but I remember I used to do a lot of trade deals. And those were always interesting, but that's how you make stuff happen. So let's go back now, because I think a lot of your tenacity and understanding of getting through these tough deals comes a little bit from your history. So let's go way back and talk about, you were an arms dealer, but before you were, I kind of want to go through like the arms dealer and how, like, kind of give us the story. Where did
let me go. We'll go way back.
Okay, awesome.
So I think because a lot of my tenacity or sort of my drive, I even call it just my hustle. I'm a scrappy guy, and that's probably one of my best attributes is that I'm scrappy. I'm a go-getter, and I'm going to work harder and fight harder than most people will. And a lot of that actually stems from being from a very large family. I'm one of 10 children, and so we grew up in a very Orthodox Jewish household in Miami Beach. My parents had 10 children, no twins, all individual children.
Wow.
And in my house, if you didn't get home on time, you didn't get dinner. You had to fight just to get fed. We had to make alliances. I had to make an alliance. I told my sister, I'll do this for you if you put away food for me.
Love it. You're already deal making.
So we were deal making at that age.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it came from you learn a lot in being in a very huge family, and you do have to be scrappy to get through and survive. And so that sort of led me into my career, where as an Orthodox Jewish family, I went to a very Orthodox Jewish school. Can you pull that shut for me? Thank you. So I went to a very Orthodox Jewish school, and the trajectory for me was go to school, learn a lot, become a rabbi, and then become a leader and rabbi in your community somewhere.
Wow.
And when I decided that really wasn't for me, I left what would have been that high school or that rabbinical college at the age of 15.
Wow.
And so
Okay.
At
What did your parents
15,
think about that?
Well, my parents had just split up. Actually,
Okay.
there was a divorce after 10 kids, and I wasn't really talking to my father so much at the time, but my mother was not particularly happy. But my mother had a very save the ones you can mentality at that time.
There were 10, right?
There's a lot of kids. She was really focused on the younger ones and the teenagers. We had a little bit of carte blanche to run around and do what we wanted to. So I left school. I went and got a job. I went to work for a guy named Stuart Halskenner, who was a former Wall Street guy that started a very, very, very big entrepreneur. He started his own uniform manufacturing company, Scrubs, for like nurses.
Like the TV show. Anyway,
Yeah, well,
I couldn't resist. I know what Scrubs are. I'm just.
We would sell the ones with like the hearts and the Scooby Doos and the stars and balloons and the Mickey Mouse.
Oh, love it. Yeah.
And so he would manufacture and then distribute them to these nurses' uniform stores all around the country. And at the time, he had a guy flying around the country with a couple suitcases full of scrubs and selling them in person. And then he gave me a phone, taught me how to work taught me how to work phone. And I mean, he would record me, listen to me. He'd walk behind me and hit me on the head when I
Seriously? Wow. So this was like cold calling to sell scrubs?
Yeah, just cold calling, outbound sales, selling nurses' uniform.
So we got to pause, guys, on this. I'm not a big cold caller, but if you're good at cold calls, you're good at cold calls. What did you learn from your cold calling?
Oh my gosh, I probably have at least 10,000 hours of cold call experience. You have. I mean, what you really learn from that is that behind that, somewhere there's going to be a yes, and it might be 100 no's before you get one, but it is all a numbers game, and you have to stay headstrong. You have to be positive. You have to be able to take rejection, hang up the phone, reset, and go back into the next call with a smile, because that might be your yes customer.
Right. So, wow, I can't even imagine. I mean, but what was your when he taught you how to do it? What did you learn? What did you learn about how to do a call and not to do a call?
So I learned that you need to be prepared for what it is that you're selling. You need to have all of your rebuttals down. And that sometimes just comes by making phone calls. You need to get what we call the marbles out of your mouth. You need to be able to have a response to any rejection. And again, you really learn that you need to be resilient, because it's very hard to take that kind of rejection. It's not for everybody. Some people can't do an hour of outbound cold sell.
Oh, I can't do it.
Sales.
I'm not going to do it.
We would do it 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day sometimes.
But I don't know, I feel called now to bring up our book, Isaac, Never Split the Difference. Chris Voss. Because when you want to talk about rebuttaling, I hope I'm not sidetracking too much, but that guy gets you in the frame of mind to have the right kind of conversation. Because my favorite quote by Chris Voss is, it's not a sin, well, there's two. One is, no deal is better than a bad deal. But the other one is, it's not a sin to take, what does he say? It's not a sin to not get a deal. It's a sin to take a long time to not get a deal.
There you go.
But it's about your point, having these conversations where you get to the deal or you don't, and you move on. I mean, maybe I'm sidetracking too much there, but it totally came to mind and seemed relevant.
It's a real back end. That's where I got my sales experience from at a very young age. And then I went on this
the tenacity for this business. This business is a piece of cake, and this is only the beginning. So you're selling scrubs, and then what happens?
I go on a trip to Israel with some of my buddies who were in high school at the time. I was not, but all the high school kids were going on this this trip to Israel called the March of the Living, where they take you for a week in Poland and then a week in Israel, sort of like a Holocaust education and Israel history trip. And so I went on this trip, and I just fell in love with Israel, but I felt like I had only seen it from a tour bus. We spent so much time going from one place to the next.
Yeah.
So I came home and I essentially quit my job. I gave him 2 weeks notice. I got a round trip, open-ended ticket to Israel, packed a bag. I kissed my mama.
She's like, okay, now what?
and I flew off to Israel. I mean, but again, at that time, I mean, I was 15, I was working, I had my own money. I'd pick up and go to New York for a weekend. And my
At
mother
15
said,
years old?
Where were you all weekend?
Wow.
The whole weekend you were gone. We didn't have cell phones at that time. And I was like, well, I went to New York. She said, where? Like, I went to New York. She would lose her mind. And I was like, well, I didn't ask you for money. What are you so mad about?
God, that's
so
awesome.
At that time,
I guess
it was
it's awesome. I don't know. It's not going to be awesome if my son ever does that. But
listen, I probably have it coming to me. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and my daughter Charlotte is a firecracker, and I know that my karma is coming for me. So.
All right. So but you flew to Israel to join the military in Israel. Is that right?
Well, actually, I just flew to Israel just to go see Israel. I went with a backpack and a ticket and $300 in my pocket, and I did a little bit of backpacking and staying in hostels for a while. I settled down in the old city in Ir Hatikah, and a very long story short, I had a bit of a fit of patriotism, I call it, and I decided to go to join the Israeli army and sort of fight for my people and my country and so on. I didn't speak any Hebrew at the time, except what I call like taxi cab Hebrew, left, right, straight.
Yeah.
And it was quite an experience. I had
How long were you in the army? What did you call it? Army, military? What would you?
Yeah, it was the army.
Okay.
It's the army. It's the IDF. And so it was a 14-month program that I signed up for as a voluntary American. So you have to become a citizen first. I became a temporary Israeli citizen. Then I joined the army. Which was an incredible experience. I learned to speak Hebrew. I learned a lot from the army that maybe I didn't learn from high school or college because I didn't essentially finish high school.
For example, what about life or about?
Just a lot of it about to me when I look at college and high school and I see what is it that most people learn, and unless you're a surgeon or a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, you learn some very particular trade or skill set. Most people go to college, they assume all this debt, and what did they learn? What are they using from it?
Right, that's what, yeah.
And the only thing that I can deduct from this is that most people are learning that you got to work hard to get through it.
Now, the doctor thing, let's keep them in school. They need to learn. They need to learn how to do that. But there's a lot of things anyway, go ahead. I had to do that.
I think what people are learning, is getting through it. It's hard work. It's not fun. You got to sit down. You got to commit. You have to make these, do these. You have to write essays, and you got to study. You got to read books. So you learn
discipline in school. So what did you learn in the military?
So I think the discipline is what I got out of the military that I maybe didn't get in school. And I think that was a really great experience for me. I learned to speak Hebrew. I learned a lot about guns and ammo and shit. And
that brings us to, how did you get out of the military? And is that when arms dealing came next?
Arms dealing actually was a little bit later, but I came back from the military, and I decided that I was going to go give college a crack, and I got my GED. I went up to Tallahassee. I went to TCC for a few years. I had to do some remedial courses, and I found that college really wasn't for me. Maybe it's because I can't sit still for very long periods of time.
Right. Yeah.
But I also didn't find anything that I wanted to do in college. I was looking at all those, and I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be a lawyer. So again, I left school early, and I went back into sales. And at that point, I had moved to New York, and I got a job managing a call center. Well, I'd started just making cold calls, and I worked my way up to a sales manager, and eventually oversaw 2 offices for this company, Hass Advantage, which we sold credit cards that had an affinity rewards program. It was like it supported.
So you had a call center selling these credit cards.
So yeah, we were doing outbound credit card sales, and when we talk about hard sales, selling nurses scrubs was a cakewalk compared to selling somebody on a credit card, which has great advantages, but when you get them to say yes, and you have to ask them for their social security number.
Yeah, that's not going over very well when they don't know you.
That's hard work. But we did it, and we opened up a second office.
Like, you're the man of overcoming the impossible. Yeah. So you go from selling scrubs. I've already lost track.
To the IDF.
That's right. Yes, to the IDF.
To college.
Then to college.
And then to
and now you're selling credit cards and asking people for their social security number on the phone. That's great. I'm kidding.
Yeah. So
I mean that everybody to drive home like the stuff this guy's like overcome and been through, and no wonder you can make an impossible deal happen in real estate, because that's easy. Okay,
Well,
so
it's about reinventing yourself. It's just the same game, different stadium. but yeah, so I'm doing that, and then a buddy of mine in Miami starts working for a guy who was doing government contracting. He was doing defense contracting, so he was bidding on large scale government bids. Sometimes it was helmets and riot gear. Sometimes it was arms and ammunition. But they were getting kind of big, and they had just landed a $298 million contract to sell arms and ammunition to the U.S. Department of Defense in Iraq and Afghanistan. And
wow.
it was way bigger than him. And so he kind of put out the call, like, we need young, scrappy go-getters, get them in here. And so my buddy calls me and says, hey, you gotta come back down to Miami and come work for this guy. Like, there's huge opportunity here. The money is flowing in. We need guys like you to come in and just make shit happen.
Okay, what's the movie? What's the movie?
So yeah, that's the movie. Yeah.
What's the movie? Oh man, what's the movie?
I forget what they call it.
Was that not you?
It was not me, but I worked with those guys. Yeah, what is the name of the movie?
I was going to say, that's totally the movie.
The dudes,
Everybody, we're going to tag that movie. Isaac's going to find it and comment on the video and make sure we tag it, because that's the movie. Okay.
What is it? Oh, I forget what the name of the movie is. The book was called Arms and the Dudes. War Dogs.
War Dogs.
War Dogs was the name of the movie.
Yes, War Dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, so you were part of the War Dogs.
I was part of the War Dogs. So at the time, I mean, we didn't really have very formal titles, but at the time that the New York Times wrote that article, I guess they had called me the general manager, or maybe at some point somebody called me
general manager of the War Dogs.
Yeah. So I took that job. I came down. It was not as glamorous in the beginning as I had hoped for. I was actually making a lot less money at the beginning, but my friend encouraged me. He's like, don't worry about how much you're going to make more later. You just get in here and make yourself indispensable. And
right.
So we did.
Okay, stop right there. Don't lose your train of thought, but get in there and make yourself indispensable. That's what you do in a real estate deal too, by the way. Just like get in there, because as a realtor, I'm going to be careful not to comment on other industries that are in our industry but competing or trying to leverage agents out of the industry. But they forget we're the ones who are actually indispensable. We've just got to get in there and know our value and make ourselves, and we are indispensable when we're doing a good job and doing what we're here to do.
If you're doing it right, yeah.
But keep going. So you're in the arms dealing. You're in the arms dealing, dude. You're not making money now. Get in there, make yourself indispensable, and
we just, and that's exactly what we did. We had a lot of work to do. We were way in over our heads. I mean, $300 million contracts are not supposed to be given to 20-something-year-old kids.
Yeah, I saw the movie.
Miami Beach.
Right.
And I mean, listen, the movie is very glamorous, super Hollywood.
I don't know. I wasn't into any of those guys. But keep going.
None of that stuff happened.
Even that version wasn't glamorous to me.
But yeah, nobody was being chased through triangles of death in Iraq.
Edit that out, Isaac. Let them think they were. Don't edit that out.
Right, we'll edit it out.
Right.
But the movie,
he won't edit it out, by the way.
In reality, what it took to get stuff done was long hours, hard work. I mean, we were working in multiple time zones. We were dealing in 13 different countries at any given time. I'd have to be here in the U.S. to manage the office and run our business, and then I'd have to be awake to call generals in Iraq, in the middle of the night, and then we'd have to call Turkey and Turkey and Kazakhstan and the Czech Republic to source ammunition and get overflight permissions for planes. Things I didn't even know what they were when we started overflight permissions.
Wow.
But it took a lot of hard work, long hours. It was exhausting stuff. But it was always about solving problems. Anywhere we went, we ran into problems. We were sending a container to Iraq, and we had to send all the ammunition.
Okay, so slow down for a minute. Slow down. Don't lose your story, but I want to say something to also resonate for everybody. Make yourself indispensable. Number one. Number two, it is all arms dealing real estate. Same thing. Real estate's just more wholesome, so people think. I'm kidding. But number two, It's all about solving problems. Like so many people think we're getting in this, we're just going to get a job or we're just going to sell a house, put a sign in the yard and sell. And everybody knows that's not what we do. And the people who make it, the 5% of people who make it, and the 1% of those 5% of people, which is like a 0.00 something anyway, that make it to the top are the people that are indispensable, number one. And number two, they go in there and they face things like what you're talking about. Like in real estate, we're dealing with usually most of it, 6-figure, but very often 7+ figure transactions, multi-million-dollar transactions. You're going to have problems in your job because you're doing real estate transactions all the time and you're around people doing them all the time. Your clients, as smart and wealthy as they may be, aren't. So guess what you are? You are the problem solver. I got to say that. Do not lose your train of thought, but I want to drive that home as to why we're interviewing you on this, besides the fact that it's absolutely fascinating, but keep going.
Thank you. I've already lost my train of thought. It's over.
Oh,
no, I got it. I got it back.
Okay, good.
I got it back.
Okay, good.
But yes, it was always about a lot about problems.
But you were going to tell us one of your stories about a huge problem that you guys solved and what you figured out.
So I mean, this wasn't even the hugest of problems, but we sent all this stuff to Jacksonville. First of all, we had to ship 9 million rounds of 9mm to Iraq. And at the time, there was a shortage of ammunition. There were police departments on back order. Nobody could get the stuff. So we called and asked permission to send repackaged ammunition, where we take the old cartridge and we refill them. And they said yes under the circumstances. And so then we had to call all of these shooting ranges in any place that we could find them and ask them if we could buy the brass from them, because they sweep it up off the floor and put them into big bags and sell them. And we had to ship all that stuff to Atlanta, well, outside of Atlanta, a little place called Villa Rica, Georgia.
That's Villa Rica, because
Villa
that's
Rica.
my part of the country.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm from South Georgia. That's South
So
Georgia.
I found myself.
Yeah.
I found myself in Villa Rica, Georgia.
You were in Villa Rica, and they would have told you that if you were paying attention. Anyway, I'm being so bad. Keep going.
Villa Rica.
I say things. It's funny. Anyway.
But I find myself over there. I mean, we were on a deadline. The container was leaving the next day from Jacksonville. They were still pumping out ammunition or running 24 hours around the clock. I flew into Villa Rica, Georgia.
Villa Rica. Villa Rica. Anyway.
And I'm buying pizzas and Coca-Cola for all the factory workers that are there pumping these ammunition, just like making sure they're working and not stopping for food breaks. Here you go, here's pizza. Helping them load up this container. That I flew out to Jacksonville and met the guy in Jacksonville, only to get there and find that the head of the cruise of the port over there wouldn't allow our shipment to go because they have a rule that you can't put ammunition and guns on the same ship. So, and that's a great rule. Fine.
I was going to say, that makes sense. Right.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, but you just didn't know that.
Except what we were sending was 50 cal rifles and 9mm ammunition.
They don't go together.
They don't mix. Those two go together. You're safer throwing the ammunition.
There's the beauty of bureaucracy right there, right?
So it took a lot. I mean, I went out and bought really fancy bottles of booze to pay somebody off to get an appointment with the guy so that I could sit him in a room and show him like this. I get it, but you need to make an exception for us.
Wow.
It took a lot. It took a lot of you got to cut through all the no's and find a way to.
I am dealing with maybe 2 or 3 deals right now that sounds exactly like. There's just no ammunition, but it's the same kind of stuff. It is the same exact stuff. Oh my gosh, I love it. So, tell us more. What else do we need to know? You go through.
That was it. That was a very short-lived, glamorous lifestyle.
And how long? Yeah, it sounds like it. No sleep.
That
was
less than a year. We were making at that time. I was 20-something, and we were making plenty of money with only more money in sight. I mean, there was millions to be made by the end of that 2-year contract. But if you've seen the movie, you know that in the end of that, it did not end very well for everybody involved. There were some corners cut and some things done that were not. And it ended in federal agents storming into our offices and taking our computers and file cabinets away.
Wow. Yeah.
There were federal indictments handed out. I was never indicted in that, but when it was definitely an eye opener when I received a letter from Henry Waxman and the Congressional Oversight Committee to come out to DC and discuss the New York Times article and how we landed these contracts and what went wrong. And it was time to lawyer up. And that is sort of like the time that real estate was really reintroduced to me, because after that was all said and done.
What year was that?
That was around 2008 or so.
Okay.
And my attorney, so I'd asked my attorney if I could go back into arms dealing after that all had gone down, because people came to me and said, hey, we'll financially back you if you can go do it.
Because obviously you can get shit done, pardon me, but
so I was like, I was game, I was ready. And I go to my attorney and say, is there any reason that I can't do it? He says, there's no legal reason you can't do it. You weren't indicted. And if you went about it and did it kosher and didn't do some of the stuff that was done the last time, yeah, sure, you could do it. He's like, but, he looks at me and says, you just paid me a lot of money. Not as much as he wanted, by the way. The guy was an angel.
Right.
We had just paid a lot of money for a very expensive defense. And he says, and to show that you're just a nice Jewish kid that got mixed up in the wrong crowd in business, and then you're going to go back and show him that you're an arms deal. He's like, look, this is not a clean business. And he's right. There's no way to spin that. It can be a very, very dirty and dark business, the world of arms and ammunition and international warfare. So I said, what the hell else am I going to do? I'm a high school dropout. Everything I got to do, I got to go start from scratch. I got to go get another phone sales job. So he looks at me and says, I don't know, you're a knight. Go sell real estate. You'll be great at it. So,
that's good advice.
So he was right, but he clearly did not watch the market, because I went to open up the door to real estate. It's 2008, and it was like people running for the hills, like the place was on fire.
It's a great time to start.
And so I slammed that door shut. Door shut, and I was like, okay, forget that. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And I went and I got another call center job, and that's how I got into the moving business. And
that's right.
And then I worked my way up through the call center until I was managing the call center.
My attorney has tons of good advice. You should have paid that guy more and listened to him. No,
so
that's
was
awesome.
That. And then I found myself doing in-home estimates for larger moves going interstate. And I'm standing there going, wow, I was very happy. I wasn't working very long days. I was working from home at that point. I had an apartment in
well, now you get to work long days. Yeah.
Well, it's much longer and harder hours, but I mean the opportunity is really there. It's incredible what can be done, and I think I told you I'm not the number one real estate agent in my market. I didn't make the Wall Street Journal 1000 this year, although that's a goal for next year.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, I may not yet be the biggest, but I've only got 6 and change years under my belt here. I have a long way ahead of me, and.
Well, and you made me think about something. Ben Bacall, who's been on our show, talks about, number one, not number one, whatever you want to do. If you look at the inventory, if you look at the houses out there, if you look at the need for what we do, it's so vast. And there are not many people that have accomplished what you've accomplished in real estate, much less in arms dealing and everything else you've done, or vice versa, that you just go out there and apply yourself. And that's why you've been as successful as you've been so far. But anyway, finish what you were telling us about.
Well, I just in the end, it came down to real estate. Real estate was very wholesome. In fact, if you think arms dealing is a dirty business, you should look into the moving business, because that can be a very, very terrible place.
We don't want to know. I don't want to know.
It is not. It is not easy to keep people happy in that business. I found that real estate is actually the right side of that transaction, in that not only in that it pays better, but everybody's happy when they sell a house or buy a house. Like, yay, we bought a house. We sold our house. It's great. We got a contract. Everybody's super thrilled. And then you have to move that house.
And then you go, I'm never doing this again.
Oh, yeah. You got to pack it up. You got to uproot. You got to move to a new place. In these cases, a new city or a new state. People are at their absolute most stressed out time in life. That, divorce, and death are really like the 3 hardest times in people's life. And you're dealing with people at a very, very difficult place, and it's logistics. So, things break,
just like
things get
dealing.
scratched, things get lost, trucks break down.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of problem solving. And, to me, I'm like, if I'm going to go through all that work, I want it to be a little more wholesome, and I want it to pay a little better. And so real estate provides that for me.
That's awesome. So I want to ask you a couple of questions, and then we do our final three, as you know, because you're an awesome listener of the show. So a couple of questions is what is the thing about? Well, I've got three. Number one, what do you think gives you your cutting edge to win business over other real estate agents? Because it is a competitive industry.
I think it's my tenacity and my scrappiness. For me, it's just about showing my clients that I will go above and beyond. That we're all gonna do the same stuff. If you're interviewing good agents, we're all gonna do virtual tours and drone videos and high-res photography, and we're all gonna advertise on Facebook and put it out on our networks and so on, so forth. But when the deal time comes and it's time to negotiate and it's time to take all these 20 different moving parts, and the lenders and the title companies and the inspection reports and the mold and the plumbing and when it's all going south, I'm the guy that you want in there fighting for you. I'm that guy. I'm the soldier. I'm the arms dealer. I'm the cold calling badass that's going to come in and get this done.
Well said.
What makes
I love that. What are you most excited of or most proud of about your real estate career?
Most recently, that $190,000 deal that we just did. And
I love it. He just did a $7 million deal, but he's proud of the $190,000 deal. But I get it. It's awesome.
I know it's silly. It's not by a long shot my biggest transaction, but a lot of people said it wouldn't happen, and I just wasn't going to accept that. So I am proud of that, because I think even when you can make it happen, some people will put in that work if it was 1.9 or if it was 5 million. Right. But I feel like not a lot of people would have gone the distance for 190,000, and I'm proud of myself for doing it.
Yeah, and I've already said this, but what you get out of that, what you learn, what you can take forward to other deals that are bigger deals, and they often do bring you bigger deals when you least expect it, is so valuable. What do you have? Any kind of a bump in your road of being a real estate agent, or glitch or story, and some of it may be that $100,000 deal where things were going south and you were able to come in, and a problem that occurred, you were able to step in, shift it, move forward, make it happen.
So, as real estate agents, I think what most people maybe don't recognize is that we're doing that. Every day, every day is a new day, and we're hitting those bumps in the road, and we all have peaks and valleys, real estate cycles, markets shifting. Any kind of small change anywhere really can affect us in a very large way, and sometimes we'll go months without a solid payday. And I think every day we're out there sort of fighting the challenge and trying to stay the course, and it's easy. I went into June with $11 million in contracts, and I left June that was down to 4.5. Right. It was, and that's a big blow. And to be able to you have to get back up and sort of reset yourself.
Here's what I love. There's a lot of agents aspiring just to do 4 million in a year, and you're like, well, I only did 4 million in June. Like, that's okay. That's not bad. It
was a hard blow, though. It was a hard blow. It was hard.
You know what it is, but I think, I don't know about you, and tell me what you think, but for me, it's like when that happens, because that happens and the opposite happens all the time. Like, I go in, I'm thinking nothing's, things just don't feel like they're coming together, and all of a sudden things are blowing out of the park, and vice versa. But whatever it is, it's like, this is my path. Whatever, my biggest thing is, this is not happening to me, it's happening for me. And for somebody like you, you're making it happen, and me too. But but whatever it is outside of my control, it's happening for me, because I've got the ambition, I've got the know-how, and you definitely have the problem solving. Like when shit hits the fan, sorry everybody who doesn't like it when I cuss, but when it hits the fan, that's when I go, oh yeah, I got this. It's time to make it happen. Right?
I have this plaque on my desk that I keep. It says, "Every day I'm hustling." And I'm thinking the song.
We gotta play the song, except I'm sure we don't have rights to it. Every day I'm hustling.
My wife actually sent me that. It just shows up at the office one day. It doesn't have it doesn't say who it came from. I'm like, who sent me this thing? And the next, with that night I went home, and she said, "Did you like the gift?" Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, I love
It's a
it.
reminder to me that like it's literally every day. You know, today's a great day. Tomorrow might not be. Tomorrow might be the worst day of your career, and the next day the sun comes up again. We're gonna like you just need to stay the
So
course.
whatever it is happening for you, good or bad, you think it's bad, but it's good because somebody's got better
But
plans
I
in
love
mind for you than
what you
what you
said though. It's
do.
not
Yeah.
happening. Yeah, it's not happening to you. It's happening for you.
I say that every day. I have a meditation thing I do. 6-phase meditation, Vishen Lakhiani. God, I don't mention that one as much as the boss. We'll have to get Vishen on the show. But he's awesome. But yeah, he does this whole thing, 6-phase, and the last thing is it's happening for me, not to me. Okay, so final three. I got the final three. Number one, in real estate, what have you found other than your cell phone, unless it just has to be that, but it does have to be that. So other than your cell phone, what have you found has been your most powerful tool for this business, technology or otherwise?
To me, it's always been market analytics, just scrubbing the data, and you know we have a lot of cool tech at Compass, but sometimes it's just grassroots. You got to go back in, just deep dive into the property records and analyze a market to understand the trends and see where things are going. And that's at the early stages of my career when I was going after listings. I didn't have very much. I couldn't boast about all my record-breaking sales or how many houses I've even sold on the wire. I hadn't sold a house yet. I'm going for those listing appointments because I knew that it was about the listings, not about the buyers. And you know, you get the listing and you control the deal, and the buyers will come to you.
And I want to keep going. Well,
but I didn't have very much. But what I was taught, my friend Manny Chamizo taught me that you need to be able to run the numbers. If you can talk the numbers, if you can tell them about their neighborhood, if you know details about why the house down the street is more valuable because they had impact windows, because they just redid their roof, because they didn't have cast iron pipes, you know, and they had redone their plumbing, which is, you know, all these things tell you, and that's why that house sells for more. If you're the doctor, they're not going to second guess you, and the doctor knows a shit, and so you can't get in there and fake your way through it. You know, if you just go grassroots, learn the data. In Miami or in Florida, it's all public. You know, there's no privacy here. You can study the market and drive it, kayak it, bike it, walk it, do whatever it is you got to do to really know your neighborhood, and then you have more than. And that doesn't cost you anything.
There's an agent in your market. I'm not going to name him because he hasn't been on the show, but I know him pretty well, and I think he does at least a couple hundred a year. And when he got into business, his first 6 months of having his license, he didn't even try to sell. He just said, I walked the beaches of Miami and I learned every building and every HOA and every nuance and every square foot price and every amenity. And once I learned and knew my market, then when I went out to get business, it was like it didn't even matter because I knew so much more than everybody else. I was the obvious person to work with.
And that's free. I mean,
and you got to look at the properties in person too, not just online, by the way. Which
go to the open houses.
Leonard Steinberg. Yeah, did you listen to his interview? The whole thing. He went to I don't know, like 8 houses a day or some insane number of houses just getting through them.
Yeah, but I think a big misconception in real estate when people get in. If I could go back and tell my young self, but if I can go back and tell like newbie agent Levi how to really stay focused, I'd focus on getting my contacts organized, because the further down the line you get, the harder that becomes. You go back down and realize, like, focus in on your contacts, clean them up, organize them, figure out where you have opportunities in there, and learn your market. It's not, new agents are so concerned, even as you get, we get very focused on faking it till you make it and playing the role or looking the part and worrying about what record-breaking sale you do or don't have, when if you know your market like better than anybody else, that's real stuff.
And if when your client knows you know that, and they need to know you care, which knowing that is how you care, it comes across. Okay, next question. What book would you say, or if you don't read, which if you don't, I recommend you start. You don't read.
Not enough.
Like, because you've been like doing too many arms dealings and other things like that.
I've never made time for it.
What So every 1 in 20 interviews we get one of you people. Anyway, so what, I'm giving you a hard time, but what motivational speaker, influencer, even if it's like Gary Vee or whoever.
You know, I would go back and say, look, I may not read very much. I watch a lot of the Gary Vee stuff, and I'm watching all the, I watch all the motivational speakers, and in little.
Give us your one. Which one would you most recommend listening to and taking advice from?
I like Gary Vee. I think some of his stuff's a little over the top. I think not everybody is made to be. If you, and he does say that, you have to look deep inside yourself and know whether you are or not an entrepreneur.
I love Gary Vee. Gary Vee's not a realtor though. I want to have a talk out with Gary Vee on like, dude, like you're awesome, but you're not a realtor. Like he gives realtors advice. Dude, that's cute, but. That's cool. And I take his advice, by the way, everybody, but I take it in context of what I know about my own industry. And I bet he would tell everybody that. I love the guy. And I would love to give him a hard time.
I will say that there is a book that I read when I was maybe 15, and it's sort of a timeless book. And I think that I took a lot of that at the age of 15. I maybe forget how much I absorbed from that, but the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it's an oldie but a goodie. That's a reread. If you haven't read it in a long time, go back and do it again.
That book comes up on this show a lot, and I read it. I mean, like 20 plus years ago. So, and it's a really good book.
It's really huge. And
when it was written,
one of my biggest takeaways from that book was when he says, learn people's names and use them often, because people love to hear their name. It's so
because
true.
it feels like you care about them and you're paying attention to them. It's huge.
And if you make that effort to remember their name and how it's pronounced. I mean, I get a lot of Levi in my life, and it's not. I don't blame anybody for it. It's spelled Levi. It sounds, it's just pronounced Levi.
Yeah, it took me a while to remember too, but hey.
But you're not alone. But it's one of those things, and I make it a point, and I think that just by taking that extra effort to do it, you end up caring a little bit more about that person, because you're not.
The action itself makes sure you care.
Yeah, and they appreciate that, and you're able to sort of form that bond and connection, and it's something so simple, but using their name is really important. And
applying. Yeah, I'm going to get off on Chris Voss again because I enjoy his book so much, but it
Chris
does
Voss will have to come
a
back.
lot of his. His son's going to be on. Are we releasing him soon? Well, he's going to be released by the time this comes out, but I will apply this, guys, because the book, if there's any book you can read, Never Split the Difference, will change your life. The book, by practicing what it tells you to apply to negotiate, it actually enforces empathy, which actually changes how you look and see situations and truly actually engage better, to kind of what we're talking about with 7 Habits and just simple things like remembering people's names.
It's like I sometimes we walk into a restaurant and try to get a table last minute, and they tell you no. They're sorry, we're full. It's going to be 45 minutes. But I'll sometimes just pause and I'll look at them and say, like, what's your name?
Right.
It's like, Jessica, is there any way you could try to make it happen? Like, if there, I see a little table back there in the corner, like, we'll take any table. We're not picky. It's like, all right, let me try. And then,
exactly.
Like, what did that take? Just caring for a second.
Engaging for a second.
Be just another person.
Exactly. Okay. Last question. If there's one thing you would hope we all remember from this interview with you, what would you have that be?
About me, or just general message?
Just from this interview, just general message about
general takeaway is it is not all glamorous. Sometimes the movie that they make about it may be more glamorous, but when you peel away the glamour, really it's about everyday hustling. It's about keeping your head up, powering through. And for me, there's a lot of ups and downs. This has not been the best first half of my year. It's not my record breaking, first 2 quarters. But I'm powering through. There's a whole second half of the year left, and I'm focused. And I think that is the takeaway that I have from my life, and I hope that people take from me is you're gonna have wins, you're gonna have losses, good days and bad days, and you just get back up, stay positive, look forward, and keep moving.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the show.